James 1 verse 4. It's one of my favorite scriptures because it helps people understand what God is doing in their life. And it's just fundamental. Let me get to that. But let patience perfect its work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Perfect and complete. The only person that we know that was perfect was Jesus Christ. But he also mentioned he wanted you to be perfect as much as he was perfect. We translate that to holiness, but you can say almost certainty. It's the same thing as he wants you to not be of lack. He wants you to be as holy as he is holy and as perfect as he is perfect. But what does it mean? What does perfect mean in this context? But to get there, we're going to have to go back to that patience thing at the top. James opens up that book with saying, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing that the trying of your faith develops patience. But let patience perfect its work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." Then he goes, "If you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all men liberally without criticism, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith without wavering. For he who wavers like the sea, tossed to and fro, etc. A double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Ask of wisdom, who God gives without criticism." And he's also mentioned perfect, and he's also mentioned patience. Patience and perfection is a people thing. It's not a Western thing. It's not about acquiring or knowing or attaining something. It's about people. And here's what I mean by that. Hypomonē is a Greek word meaning to stay under. And when he refers to patience, he refers to staying under the pressure. And in our case, staying at a location or staying connected to something or staying to learn something or staying under the pressure to attain a skill in life is important. So if you back up from the spiritual aspect of it, a life aspect, you don't get anywhere in life without patience. One can't build a business without patience. One can't learn a new skill without patience. One can't become a bodybuilder without patience. All things in life that are good and equitable require patience, waiting, continued steadfast and dedication and pushing forward and pushing through till you reach that goal. And in this case, the goal is to not want anything or to not lack anything. One of the very peculiar topics in Scripture is seeing how someone great is waiting. How someone who is going to accomplish a lot waits. King David waited at one point in time. He became known as one of Israelites' biggest warriors. But there was a time where he too didn't know how to use this weapon. I wouldn't want to be sent into war without knowing how to use my weapons. For instance, I don't want to use a grenade launcher without knowing the precise amount of time before the rest of me becomes history. I'd rather want to know and study my weapon. You know the story very well. David and Goliath. I'm not going to recite it to you, but something that's very interesting in there is he rejected Saul's armor and Saul's sword. Instead, he used a weapon that he was very familiar with. Being a shepherd, he used a sling and a few stones to knock out any animal that would come in and, feast on his sheep. And using what he knew, because he stayed under, he stayed home, he didn't venture out when he wasn't supposed to, he allowed God to cook him, so to speak, allowed God to prepare him, he was able to then acquire a very, very large sword. I'm going to spare the details, but let's just say he took Goliath's swords home, and it may need a cleaning. Would you trust someone that went into battle and didn't know how to use their weapon? I wouldn't trust anyone that went into battle and didn't know how to use their weapon. Rather, If I'm going to battle and I know I'm going to do something, accomplish something, I want to attain something, I have a purpose that God has given me, or perhaps starting a family or anything of those nature, all of that thing takes time. And not time sitting around begging God to make this thing happen, but it takes time as in patience, as in taking that next step, and that next step, and that next step until you arrive. And in this case, arriving is lacking nothing, wanting nothing. Why? Because God has already fulfilled every desire in your heart. Because He put those desires in your heart, the real ones, the right ones. Although, that's a whole other topic for another time. Now let's go back to that perfect part. I was referencing Matthew 5:48, where He said, "Therefore be perfect, even as your Father who is in heaven is perfect." And because many people decide not to give you context, let's scroll through context real here. You've heard it said, "You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I say unto you, love your enemies, and bless those that curse you, and do good to those," blah, 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 right? We all heard this before. For He continues in 46, "For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet your brothers only, what are you doing more than others? Do not even tax collectors do the same? Therefore, be perfect, as your Father who is in heaven is perfect." Patience and perfection. We may have different Americanized understanding of what that is. Some people say it's being wealthy, other people say it's accomplishing your dreams, but being perfect is about showing love to every single person. Beyond that, there is no law. Beyond love, nothing can stand against it. So you now know to be patient. You now know that God is doing something in you. And sometimes where you are may feel like it hurts a little bit more than it should. And I got good news for you. Just press through the storm. Let God guide you. And let Him give you peace. You'll find that not only will you have the capacity to love those that, let's just say today, you may put in the "I'm not going to love" category. But after today, you pray for peace, you pray for patience. You'll be able to love perfectly. It's not always easy, but if Jesus Christ told you you could do it, I guarantee you can do it.